and welcome to this episode of Beyond the Barclay. My name is Izzi Basey-Fisher and today I'm joined by Norwich City manager Andy Cook. Are you alright?
Very good, Izzi, very good.
Yeah, I'm good. So obviously we'll do a little bit of context on what today's episode's about. It's going to be sort of a brief bit about how obviously the women have got to the point where they are with the playoff now, and obviously the matches that have brought them to this situation, and then obviously upcoming matches with Carrow Road and Burton Albion's playoff final against one of either Moneyfield or Swindon, but that is to come. And then we'll do a little bit at the end about getting to know Andy a little bit better, because I'm sure you'd all love to know a bit more about Andy. So obviously yesterday's game, well not yesterday, would have been Sunday now.
Sunday, a couple of days
Don't
ago.
know if Jess put the episode out, but we shall find out. Obviously 4-1 win, nice and simple. Grace Wriggler hat-trick away from home. Is that a good way to describe it?
Yeah, maybe it's not a simple bit. I think it's... Yeah, the result was good. Obviously the scoreline great. A hat-trick for Grace is fantastic. I think it's a second hat-trick now, and I think it puts her on 20 goals, I think, for the season. So, yeah, she's had a phenomenal season from that respect. And yeah, we're just really pleased with the way the game went. So, yeah, we're happy with everything that happened in the game, really. So, it was a performance that allowed a lot of people to show me what they can do, how they can work, and also what they've been doing in training recently. You know, they've worked excellently, and we've started this week really well as well. So yeah, we're really happy with where we are right now. Yeah,
I suppose there was a lot of rotation. I didn't sort of speak to you about it, but likes of Poppy Francis coming back in, Drew getting a start. I don't think that's happened in a while. Is it nice to have the sort of players that you got on that reserve to come back in and do that job?
Well, yeah, look, Drew and Poppy is the names you've just mentioned there. They've probably had a tough season and Sienna put her in that bracket because Sienna and Poppy have been left out of a lot of squads for different reasons. And every week I have to send them a message to say, yeah, unfortunately, you're not in the squad. But, you know, Poppy had an opportunity. She was going to travel with the team and she wasn't due to be in the squad, funny enough. We had an illness on the morning, so she then joined the squad and she was travelling down to warm up with us. And then, yeah, when we got into the final stage of the game, I felt it was the right opportunity to put her on, to give her some minutes, and she did great. It allowed us to see some players move around the pitch in different roles, which was nice. But yeah, they've been fantastic. And Drew, she's one that's just been training brilliantly this season. And I think, you know, if we were in the same situation, you know, last season and Drew was showing what she showed right now, she'd have got a lot of starts and a lot of minutes and things. And I think that's where the quality that the team's got right now, and the evolution that the team and the squad has gone through over 12 months, really. We're in a very different place than we were last year, and no doubt that'll happen again in the future. So right now I'm really pleased. It leaves me and the staff a lot of tough decisions every week on who we start, why we start them, the opposition come into that in terms of what we're looking for, and the game on Sunday, you know, allowed us to try and build on that, and Dulwich actually set up in a way that we didn't expect them to. So marking Grace in possession, that allowed Hope to drive forward with the ball, and we didn't really plan for that, but you know, we've got to try and adapt in the game as well. So yeah, really pleased with the game, and like you said, those younger players, they managed to get a few minutes and some starts for people, which is nice, and yeah, really, like I said, pleased with where we are.
Yeah. In terms of that illness, I'm going to assume it was Ellie Bishop, because we had some fans questioning the graphic, trying to work out where she disappeared to and Poppy coming in, so I'm assuming that?
Yeah, Bishop unfortunately was ill on the morning, so she didn't travel with us, as you'll have seen, been there. So yeah, Poppy was travelling with us, wasn't going to be in the squad, and then we moved her in the squad last minute.
Yeah, okay. So moving on, obviously, last time I spoke to you, I think was sort of just before Christmas, November time. A lot has happened since then, a lot of points have been won, a lot of points have been dropped. I thought we'd take it back. Well, not a lot, you know what I mean. Enough not to have won the league, but
Still sore.
Yes, we won't talk about it too much. But obviously, I thought we'd go back and sort of talk about some of those critical games, like the likes of Luton, Fulham, Chatham, the ones that have necessarily been the difference, even though you'd hope they wouldn't have been. But obviously, I suppose the first one, second game back was that Luton game, 1-1 draw. We, as sort of fans, sort of from the sidelines, knowing that we were winning at the time of Fulham losing, we're thinking, oh, this could be the one that turns it in our favour. What was it like for you from the dugout side?
Well, after the game, I think Fulham drew that afternoon, didn't they? And with us drawing, it was kind of, well, we're in the same position. However, when we were in the game and you know, we were 1-up, it was, you know, we were looking at how do we either preserve the 1-0 lead and or do we try and get the second? And it was edging on the trying to preserve the lead. We were frustrated with the free kick that was given against us. I think Millie's, I was going to say dived in, she didn't dive in. Millie's gone to block the cross, and the girls skipped past her, and then her momentum has took her down. And Millie hasn't tackled the girl. We looked at it enough times afterwards to see what happened. Millie was adamant she didn't touch her, but something that I say a lot, players will sometimes get tackled and they'll stay on their feet and then look at the referee, but unfortunately if you don't go down, you don't make the referee make a decision. They kind of get away with it and they can just say play on. So the in that moment, the Luton player took advantage. It was a great free kick, and then we got to deal with that. So the fact that Fulham drew that afternoon, I think it was one where after the game we had a little bit of level-headedness about it, but for me as an individual, and I know for the staff, we at one point just after the full-time whistle felt that, oh God, that's a few points dropped there. But because it was a draw, it was very much we're still in it, we can still go and fight, but it was ultimately an opportunity lost looking back now where we were and the way that the league played itself out.
Yeah, obviously you can't really dwell on the season before, but things like obviously we only finished a point behind Real Bedford in the end after they lost. Sort of games like that, do you try not to dwell on them even though that you know that that's how close it is to going up?
Yeah, you try not to, because if you do, you drive yourself insane. But ultimately, that's where the league season, the football matches, they come down to fine margins, and you try not to dwell, you try not to think about it, because it can drive you insane. But you've just got to work with what happens and how the players perform on the pitch, how we look in the week. And one I'm always conscious of is what I'm doing and what I'm saying. And there's a couple of times where, I think we'll obviously get to the Chatham game. There's a few things I said at half time there that I wasn't happy with myself, that I think maybe has led to the second half performance to a certain extent. However, look, we've got a good group of players. There's a few times, Kingy, for instance, she's a good example where she'll openly voice and say, right, it's all right that Andy says that, but we have to take a little bit of responsibility. We have to make sure we're performing, and that's why she's so dominant in the middle of the park. So, it's those little moments. It's everyone. It's the staff. It's the team. It's yourselves as fans coming to the ground. When we're away, we always know that we're going to have good support and good following, and it helps us as well. But yeah, it's sometimes when you look back last season, it ended up being a point. This season we've now got more points than Bedford had last year, and the other day, actually, just to make myself feel a little bit better, I look back at all the maybe the last 4 or 5 years of when Norwich have finished, and this is the highest points we've had currently. It's the highest goals we've ever scored. So it made me feel a little bit better that we are definitely on an upward trajectory from where things were, and from the moment that I stepped into the football club, it's we've had more points, we've had more goals than we ever have, and so really pleased with where we are right now. However, I would like more than anyone to have finished first this season, but we'll take second and we'll deal with what we have to do. Yeah,
obviously it is tough from a Norwich fan perspective looking at sort of things like I looked back at the losses and things, and the only loss that's come between Real Bedford and Fulham so far in the last 2 years is a loss for Bedford, but the league was already won, so how far can you read into that? Do you find it's maybe a bit unfortunate that you've come in at the time you have and done better than you've ever done, but the teams seem to be getting that bit better and harder?
I think it's just that's the nature of the women's game at the moment. You look across the transfers that are going on in the WSL, the amount of money I've seen, a lot of stuff with obviously all the finances coming out now in April of different clubs around the country, and you look at Newcastle revenue, I think it's their turnover, is up 156%. So I think it's close to a few £1 million, and so that is where you're dealing with things in WSL 2. WSL 1 is another level compared to that, and then the opportunities that then creates in Tier 3 and ourselves at Tier 4 is players start to move down the leagues because the opportunities get blocked because of European or American internationals coming to play in the WSL, and players start to come down. So that's where we are now. That's where we're fortunate that we have the likes of Holly Mears, Eloise King, Riggs, Evie Williams, have all come in from sides that have either progressed into WSL 2 or were already playing there. So that's not just us at Norwich, that's across the league, and I think we're seeing that. You look at QPR, obviously Fulham come into the league, but they're strengthened with several good players. And it's only going to get harder. Whether we're in Tier 3 or Tier 4 next season, it doesn't matter. This is a deeper question, a deeper answer, of that is the leagues are going to get stronger. So next season with Wimbledon potentially coming back into Tier 4, and even if they stay in Tier 3, it'll be a strong Southern Division. Obviously Tier 3, you look at like Plymouth and Bournemouth, Moneyfields obviously, or Swindon will go up there from the south west. And then across the league in the north, Huddersfield look like they're going to go up again potentially. So, across the whole country there's a lot happening. Obviously the stuff that's come out recently from the changes in the National League, it's just it's a sign of the progression that's happening, and everybody needs to make sure they're stepping up. Myself, as I need to get better as a coach, the players need to make sure that they're working as hard as they can and becoming more professionalised. And then the football clubs need to follow as well. It's only so long before you're going to get more professional teams at Tier 3 and Tier 4, and the league structure will change and the professionalism will only get better. You've seen again with Burnley this season. I think they're the only fully full-time club in Tier 3. I don't think, Watford obviously have been promoted, but I don't think they're full-time like Burnley are. You get your rewards if you have a full-time setup, you have a full-time coaching staff, everyone is in there, you get your rewards because you have access to the players 7 days a week, you get the quality that you can, and you ultimately win the league. And the two teams that have done it, Newcastle and now Burnley, and not 3 teams, and Nottingham Forest, they've all been full-time, they've all gone up, they've all been successful in that response. So it's something that football clubs need to look at as well.
In terms of obviously teams getting promoted, to talk about teams coming up ahead of us, but teams coming down below, my dad always likes to sort of blow his own horn and say he knew Bedford were coming up, he knew Fulham were coming. He's obviously straight on it already with the likes of sort of like Stevenage are coming up and things. We talk about it quite a lot on those teams coming up, saying who will try and come straight up like they all have, but someone who are sort of in the mix in that second place, hoping maybe to go up, at Wroxham. What is that like if you had a team so local in this league?
I think, if I can be quite honest and frank, it would be a pain in the backside for ourselves because, again, good sides, Stevenage, Wroxham, they have good players, and both of those areas would have access to very good footballers. So, it's the likes of a Stevenage, geographically, it makes it a lot easier for them to recruit players. They're right on the doorstep of North London. You can also then look and attract players from the Midlands and sort of the east of the country as well a little bit. So, those kind of things come into play. But for ourselves, Wroxham, again, it's one where there'll be a lot of players that have played here for this football club, that have their own motivations, probably is the politest way of putting it, whenever they would come up against a yellow shirt. And so it would be a pain in the backside, it's one that I would relish on a game day, but I'm fully aware, because if I was in their camp, that's exactly what I'd be thinking, and that's what I always think of. If I was the opposition playing against me, what would I want to do and how would I be motivated? And that's exactly what I would be thinking if I was in the blue and white of Wroxham.
Yeah. So obviously a team that also do certainly want to beat us with Fulham, and obviously they have managed to get it twice, and that I think probably has tipped the league. Obviously it was a big game, obviously selling out the Nest, but obviously the first half I think was ours, but maybe the second half wasn't. Is that sort of frustrating that a game you big up so much and hope to win, so it doesn't go the way you want?
Yeah, and I think the big talking point in that game was when the girl unfortunately, pretty much broke her leg and ripped her ankle in two. Very unfortunate for Jade on the day there, but we wish her well, obviously, and we sent messages with a lot of stuff that went back and forth between the clubs, but in that moment I felt we had the momentum, and the conversations that go on between referees, management, staff, it speaks volumes in terms of, there was myself, Flo was obviously around the conversations in and around the changing rooms and stuff, but Fulham had several staff members in and around it, and they didn't necessarily want to restart that game, which is understandable from one sense, because they've just seen their player and a teammate and everything go through what she's just gone through. From a sporting context, we felt we had momentum, and that momentum was completely taken away in the final 10 minutes. Was played out in a pretty unique circumstance, and then we're frustrated with the way the third goal went in for them, because we had a throw in at the top corner. We've got to control that ball better. We can't let that ball come out, and then we've got to defend the corner better. We have to follow runners. We have to make sure we're marking, and it's those little moments, but they're the things that can win or lose your leagues eventually. And people have to realise that very quickly, that one moment can be the difference sometimes. And as you say, you try not to dwell on it because it can drive you insane, but those little moments can can prove the difference over a season.
Yeah, I suppose obviously ignoring the negatives of the outcome of that match, I suppose a big positive is the sellout of the Nest, and I would say arguably that has been probably my favourite game at the Nest before the full-time whistle occurred. But obviously, how do you feel? Because obviously from in a fan you feel the difference, you feel all those players and people around, but do you sort of notice it from the other side of the pitch?
Yeah, I mean, if I can be really honest, I'd like it to be louder. Like, it's, I said to you on Sunday at Dulwich, I thought there was a few thousand people in the stadium. You ended up correcting me and saying there was only about 700. But the fans at Dulwich, the culture that they have and that little environment they have at that football club is unbelievable. And it felt like, and it sounded like there was a couple of thousand people in the stadium. Maybe, it was a nice sunny afternoon, there was a few bevies being consumed by people at the bar in the bottom corner there, which is, absolutely sound and more power to them to go and enjoy themselves. But yeah, the Nest, when it's like it was against Fulham, it's brilliant. And yeah, if I could have it a little bit louder, I'd want that drum turned up consistently, make sure that it's always happening, it's always beating. If people can't stand the noise, move away a little bit, but when you hear it, it's brilliant. We can hear it on the sideline, it gives us energy. It definitely gives me more energy because you want to almost repay that noise back. It's the same as when Carrow Road's bouncing, when you look at the game on Sunday against that lot down the road, the noise around the stadium, once everyone gets behind it, it's hard to play against. And unfortunately, the fans want something on the pitch. I understand that, and sometimes the people on the pitch and ourselves on the sideline want something off the pitch to keep us going as well. And it works both ways, and I think it's sometimes in tandem really. You've just got to make sure that we would always try and make sure we're grafting. I will always try and make sure I'm bringing what we can, and yeah, if everyone on the sideline can keep producing what was produced at the Fulham game, that was excellent, because it was a great atmosphere. When Faith scored that goal, the noise is great, and yeah, it's brilliant to be a part of.
Yeah. So obviously you all heard it here first. We want a louder drum, louder fans, and everyone is just going to be overall a lot louder. Try your best, learn the chants. But obviously we talked about the size of the fans for Dulwich, and actually when you sort of split it out, a lot were in that stand, and there was only a small proportion of them making that noise, and it is proof that if you put yourself behind a team, you can make quite a lot of noise and go for it.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously all the Norwich fans that came down. I don't know how many there was in the end that came down to support us, but when we scored, you could just, there was that when you're at an away ground, that nice silence you hear, but then you hear that little noise of our supporters. It's brilliant, and the girls going in front to celebrate is brilliant. So away from home, it's always great, because when you can silence that, that's always my conversation to players. Whenever you're in either a stadium or you're playing in front of a loud crowd, it's making sure that you silence them when you're away from home, which is what we managed to do on 4 occasions. A few of the guys that were stood behind us were actually giving Ethan a bit of grief, saying that you're just like Arsenal in disguise because you're just scoring set plays. We're like, well, if you can't defend them, we'll keep scoring them. So yeah, it was a good little bit of banter from the sideline, which was nice, and yeah, it was all good fun, all good natured.
Yeah, I suppose moving back to the Nest, sort of the most raw game still, I guess, is that Chatham game with the 2-1 loss. From sitting behind the goal and things, we felt the wind. I thought it was going to get blown away, but obviously we all talk about it and said, like, see, their goals, don't want to sort of big up the Norwich, but their sort of goals, that would they have happened on another day, do you think, with that wind?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think that was something at half time. I mentioned the wind, we spoke about it because I felt that the weather was such an important factor really, that we had to contend with it. Chatham had set up in a certain way, and I felt one of the ways to get through them or get around them, through them, over them, was to go over them. And the point was, if we're going to play along the ball, we have to put backspin on the ball, because the way that the ball can travel through the air with backspin, when it hits a 3G, it can just stand up, and I don't think we executed that half as well as we could have. And we wanted people to drive with the ball a little bit more, because they were in a very tight unit. Their front four was very narrow, so we had to try and work the ball around them, and probably drive with the ball more rather than pass. We could have drove a bit more. So yeah, a little bit frustrating, because we work so much on those kind of things on the training pitch here, and week on week there's those little bits from me where we're asking people to drive, we're asking people to try and work the ball, and yeah, it was a frustrating afternoon, and ultimately I think the thing for me was, I knew in the back of my mind, if we dropped any points, that was then acknowledging that Fulham then were going to be champions, and I hate going down without a fight, making all those motivational things that you want to say, but I think that was the most frustrating thing with me. With at that point we knew we couldn't win the league, so then we had to make sure that we consolidated and that we were in second place, and we made sure that we were ready for the playoff. Which since then I think that's been the full focus. Everyone's been working on it. This morning, it is my day off, but I've come into it to speak to yourself. But it's one of them where I've come in and come in early, made sure I've watched a few of the games of Swindon and Moneyfields, and just try to speak to a few people to see if we can get footage. So we don't know who we're playing, but we're preparing for it. I'm preparing for it, and also as well as that, we're working towards Cambridge as well, because we want to make sure we put on a great performance at Carrow Road and put on a fantastic show for a few thousand fans that will no doubt turn up.
Yeah, I suppose I spoke to you about it at Cheshire when we said sort of Chatham couldn't overtake us, but the goal difference was obviously the risk. But inevitably, they gave it to us without much of a fuss in the end, obviously losing their match. Are you glad that one didn't go with the fight as much as the title?
Yeah, there was and again, that was probably the other part of it really. We could have made sure that we finished second that day as well, and as well as making sure that Fulham didn't quite win the league on that day. But the fact that the weekend after Chatham dropped a couple of points, it allowed us to make sure that we had the points total that we needed. But I did feel that Chatham have enough quality. They've got enough good players in that squad that they probably could have gone on a run and won the 5 games that they needed. And it would have took some for us not to lose a game, or not to draw a game at least, because we've played so well this season. The girls have put in so much work throughout the year. It would have gone some that we didn't pick up at least 1 point in the final 4 games. But yeah, it was pleasing to make sure it was confirmed. And I think it's that one. It's Fulham probably felt it. That they sort of they didn't have to play a game that they had won the league without. We felt it, that it was nice to get second place confirmed, but it would have been nice to play a game and to confirm it. So yeah, they're just the little points that when you're involved in it, that's for me the little nuances.
Yeah, I suppose obviously in terms of season is sort of coming to an end, but I'll give you a few of my highlights, even though I'm hoping there's still a few more good highlights to come, but I don't want to jinx it. But I suppose these are sort of my favourites. It's got to be stuff like that second half MK Dons. Remember sort of Hugh going in at half time and thinking, oh, is this going to be another Luton? And then obviously Grace and Tash sort of really pulled through all the defence, obviously kept one of your favourites clean sheet and all of that. And that was the fans obviously at the end of it, and obviously them all coming on a coach. It just felt like a great game, knowing that there was that sort of drive with Norwich still, and we weren't sort of having a sort of off game. There was the team there, and things like Freya's last minute goal at Cambridge. I think it's one of the goals I do watch over and over, because it is probably the funniest goal in terms of the Cambridge players, and obviously Freya's celebration just was true Freya, but proper Norwich celebrations. Things like Fulham game, obviously I don't like to talk about the result, but if I pretend I don't know the result, the whole build up to that, seeing obviously having open turnstiles and things early, and knowing that the women's game is growing and people want to support Norwich because obviously best club, why would you not come down? And I think obviously the most recent one being that Dulwich game, I said to Dad, I know it's all finished and I don't know if it's going to be boring, and I came away going, if there was still something on that game, that would have been probably one of my favourite games that I've ever been to. I think obviously the goals were obviously brilliant, but obviously having our fans there, them, and obviously making your job quite easy in the end of it, sort of an easy-ish win. It was sort of, they're my top 4, but have you, I haven't given you a chance to really think about it, but have you got any sort of top moments?
Yeah, I think when you mentioned the MK game, that one stands out in recent memory, because we felt we'd had a good half, and then the second half I thought was excellent, and we made a big point to the players of, I felt that was one of the best games where the substitutes came on and if anything made sure that we were even better when they came on, and the whole squad throughout that weekend was fantastic. So yeah, that's a good one in recent memory. Yeah, I think if I think back, I'm looking at like funny enough, Sudbury away, obviously was it 2-2 at half time? Yeah. And then obviously the second half was just all us, and it ended up 5-2, I think, didn't it, the result? But like 3 goals came in the last 10 minutes, and it's just a strange one in that, whenever we play Sudbury, or whenever we played them in the 4 times since I've been here, they're always a tough opposition. So that was a good game that stands out, for the way that we'd worked. We'd actually tried to change the formation that night. We went with like a back three, and it didn't quite work. I think the players just didn't quite understand what I wanted, probably couldn't understand my accent. And then it was the 5 goals was excellent, but for me it's more like individual moments. Like you mentioned Freya's goal there, that was a great finish. I think Faith's finish against Fulham was excellent. A game that stands out for me, but lots of moments that were in it, we've used this a few times, is when we played Chesham at home. Obviously to score 9 is quite unique in any game, but some of the goals were just moments that we'd gone through and we'd had a lot of work. So like a couple that stands out is 2 of Lara's finishes. So there's one where she's pinched it from the centre half, drove into the box and then hit it near post, which is something that Lara's been working on a lot. And then there was a goal in the second half towards the end where we've played the ball from left across the back line down the right. I think Bish played a ball through, and then I can't remember who was running forward now, which I apologise.
I'm going to be there. Someone there either.
And then the ball came across and Lara's finished it in the box, and just some really good moments and some really good goals that we have scored. And I think for me they're the bits that there's if I was to sit and you give me a few more minutes, maybe we could talk about that. That could be its own review of the season, really, and talk an hour for it, because as well as that, there then moments within training sessions that I could go back to and say, this is where I think led to this, and this moment led to that moment. It's always good to look back. But like I say, I made myself feel a little bit better earlier when I look back at previous seasons and look at the goals scored, the goals conceded, and the points totals as well. And that's something that I'm quite proud of, that the players have put themselves in this position now to get themselves to play at Carrow Road to finish the season, and then make sure that we're in a good position when we go to Burton Albion for the playoff final.
So obviously, back forward to the future, we have got Cambridge. Obviously, I don't know when this episode is going to come out, but I'll go with the date, the 26th of April. God, I'm not going that far ahead. I don't want to start my A-levels there. But obviously, it's a big game, but obviously from my perspective, it's a very different feeling to when I first saw it in September, and to me there's not much on it as such. Obviously the 3 points would be nice, some goals would be nice, new record attendance at Carrow Road would be lovely, but in terms of actually progressing it for like playoff, is there a lot of coming out of it?
I think it's that seems to be the obvious one that everyone looks at, and thinks about, that there won't be anything on the game. But in terms of myself, it's very much the performance, and it always has been, of we want to make sure we win. You have the professional standards that you want, and if you get to those games, Dulwich at the weekend was a good example. We could have easily turned up, just gone through the motions, played the game, and I don't think that's what professionals do. I know that's not what professionals do at the highest level, because you owe it to people like yourself and to all the fans that have travelled to come and watch us. We owe it to the thousands that are going to turn up to Carrow Road to put on a performance, because ultimately they're paying their money, which right now is scarce. We've got to put so much money in our petrol tanks that as well as buy the ticket, as well as the programme, as well as everything else that that will be available on those games, that we've got to make sure that we're in a position that we're putting on a good performance, that we're playing well, that we're running and tackling and driving forward and all those things that don't take any talent, and then hopefully players can show their talent and score a good goal or make a pass, a dribble, some moment that gets everybody off the seat. Because as a coach, that's what I want to see. I want to see players get into a position where they then can get us off the seat, make me run down the sideline because it's been such a good goal. And usually that's only ever going to happen if it's a really tight game. Obviously, if we're 4-0 up and I'm running down the sideline, I'd question my own sanity. But you want to be in that position. You want to be 4-0 up because of the good play that's happened, because of the quality. Defensively, we want a good, solid performance. We want the team to keep a clean sheet. So there's all those things that are always on every game, regardless of whether there's something to play for or not. And I think that's something that, as good professionals, we'll make sure that the players are doing, and that's what I'll be focusing on. And that's what we are for, the next 2 weeks before we play on the Sunday.
Yeah. I'm hoping I already know the answer to this one, but I know you've had your obviously fair share of experiences at different grounds, obviously Newcastle, Nottingham Forest and that. How does Norwich differ? And is it the best one, maybe?
In terms of clubs against clubs, or playing in their stadiums?
Playing in stadiums and sort of playing against clubs.
yeah, obviously playing at Carrow Road is the greatest stadium in the world. So yeah, it is. I really enjoy it. I'd never actually been to Norfolk before I came and interviewed. So, and then never obviously been to Carrow Road, and it's a great stadium to play in. It's one of those football stadiums that has a bit like the City Ground at Nottingham Forest. It's got history because it's been there for so many years, and yeah, you've got the things that you learn about the club when you eventually get here. And it was the same. Obviously Nottingham Forest is a bit different because everybody knows about Brian Clough that's involved in football and the European Cups that they've won. But here, the obvious one that everybody talks about is obviously Delia Smith and all the background around that. So once you get to a club and you learn the history, I think it just becomes a part of you. And I've always loved any of the clubs I've worked for. I've loved working for them. And I still have a soft spot for all of those football clubs in different ways. But right now, in terms of working here and having the ability to play at Carrow Road, which will be the third or fourth time we've been there, fourth time I think since I've been here. So it's always a pleasure. It's always an honour. And the stadium's great. The ground staff do brilliant to have the pitch as well as it can be and look as well as it can, as much as it does on that picture there. And yeah, it's great. It's a great stadium. It's a great club, and since I've been here, I've really loved the area. The people, the area, the people I get to work with. I think you don't know that until you get here. But yeah, full credit to yourselves and everybody, because I've felt at home since I've been here.
Good. Well, this is probably something you don't like me saying, because I've said it before. Is obviously my grass pitch curse. But I would like to say the last few matches you've definitely taken away that line, and I probably won't use that again because I don't think the stats work very well anymore. But obviously Burton, and it has been announced, obviously it will be on a grass pitch. Do you feel like you've sort of got lucky that you've got the best run into it? I know obviously you said a little bit to Jack about your preparations, and obviously everyone will hear that when they listen to the radio, but do you think you've got the best run in with obviously 2 grass matches? You had Cheshire just before Chatham. Do you think this is as prepared as you could get in terms of obviously out of control of league matches schedules?
Yeah, look, the schedule, we're lucky in that sense. Yeah, we get to play at the stadium. We get to, or we played at Dulwich's ground, which is grass. And from Sunday, and the session that we're going to have on Sunday will be on grass. And then from Sunday, we're actually going to be on the grass here. So our preparations are going to be absolutely spot on. We're going to work on grass, train on grass. And as much as it doesn't seem like a big issue, there's, it is really, because the way that the ball moves, the way the players can move on it, the softness, sometimes depending on how much it gets watered, the softness of the grass can change the ball, can change the movements that you make as players. And yeah, we've got to be conscious of all of those things, because we've been playing and working on the 3G pitch here, and then we're moving to grass for the final 2 weeks. So we're conscious of that, but we feel that that's the best thing in terms of preparation. The players are excited for it because it just, I don't know what it is, it's better playing on grass. It is better. It's nice that we can play on a 3G, that we have the level surface that a 3G or a 4G, whatever you want to call it, provides. But yeah, been on a grass pitch, playing at Carrow Road, playing at Burton Albion, the grass pitches out here, it's something that we hope that we can do in the future and a lot more. And the higher we progress through the leagues, the higher that all clubs progress through the leagues, eventually you've got to be on a grass pitch. So yeah, it's just something that we need to get used to more.
Yeah, in terms of that fixture, I suppose it seems to be the only thing we bring up is that Moneyfield and Swindon do have that fixture right at the end, and there is that level of unknown. But obviously I don't want you to give too much away to the other teams, but whenever me and my dad obviously look at sort of all the different tier 4 teams, we obviously say we've beaten Peterborough and they've just won the league. You did draw in pre-season to Moneyfield. Do you look at yourself and think you fancy us? So assume you want to get promoted, but do you sort of fancy yourself against any team that it could be?
Yeah, I don't think it matters who we could play or will play. And even if it was like across the country, say, I don't know, for whatever reason we would play the North and the Midlands would play the Southwest, it really wouldn't matter who we would play. We back ourselves. I back the squad immensely and know the quality that's always in the changing room and on the pitch when we're deciding the team. So it wouldn't matter who we're playing. We would prepare in the same way. We know how we want to work and what we want to focus on, and we also adapt as well. We make sure that we adapt to the opposition, because I think you've got to make sure that you know their strengths and weaknesses and try and exploit them as best you can. So that's what we're doing at the moment. That's what we're working through. And yeah, it's the same for the Cambridge game coming up. We've got to make sure that we're prepared for that, because if we take half an eye off that, we'll end up with a result that we don't want and a performance we don't want. So we need to make sure we're in for that as well. But it really doesn't bother me who we're playing. It wouldn't matter whether it was Man City or Chorley FC. I don't know why I picked Chorley out there, but just because it's near Manchester.
Well, obviously, I'm going to the playoff, and I hope everyone listening to this will be going. But obviously, a lot of fans have asked for a coach, which I know you can't sort of tell me whether you have got a coach, but whether there is a coach or not, you sort of maybe not 3 words, maybe 3 sentences to sort of convince fans that coach or not, you need to be at that game.
Well, it's an opportunity that will hopefully only come around once. It's a game that will hopefully replicate what the men did in 2015 against my Middlesbrough side. I was at that game at Wembley Stadium, and I'd love to be on the pitch as a Norwich City employee and make sure that we're doing what the men did that day against my Middlesbrough side. And if we can do that, we'll be the fans will love it, we'll love it, and we'll have a right good afternoon in Burton and make sure that we're enjoying ourselves once we get back to Norfolk as well. So I think it's everything on the history and the status of that game. The winner, 90 minutes, goes straight to penalties, no extra time. The winner goes up into tier 3, and it's never been done before. This game is a one-off that has been put in this season to promote more teams, and so if you want to be a part of history, I would say come along.
Yeah, so obviously you've done it before, you have got a team promoted to tier 3, but what would it feel like to do it for Norwich this time round?
I mean it would be unbelievable. It's actually 2 teams, but I was thinking about whether to correct you or not there, but so to do it for a 3rd time would be superb. It'd be the 3rd promotion I've been a part of, and let me tell you, every time it happens, it is unbelievable. The feeling you get, you never want it to end, and that day when it is confirmed, and the party and the celebrations you have with everybody that's around, everyone is just in a state of absolute euphoria. So I would love to be able to do it again for this club, for this city, for the people, and I think that really is what I think about a lot. Is I've been employed by several clubs across the country over my career, but it's the people that you meet, like yourself or like Flo, Ethan, Will, and all these people that the classic, if you cut them in half they'll bleed yellow and green, and all those kind of things that I'm employed by the club to coach the team that's in front of me, and I'll do the best that I can as most as I can. But when you meet yourself and everybody else that's involved in your podcast and all the other little bits around the county and the people that we work with, that really gives you energy, and it gives you that little bit extra to say, I want to do everything I can to make sure that they're happy, they're smiling, that this football club goes up, and obviously I want to do that because I'm a winner. I've won before, and no doubt we'll do everything we can to make sure we win on that day.
Yeah. So you've obviously mentioned Flo and people behind sort of camera. You're sort of behind the pitch, I'd like to say, sort of in the dugout. You're not necessarily the most prolific player, so this is your opportunity for everyone to get to know you a little bit more, because obviously I sort of know some sort of quirky facts about you from, obviously we have a little chat before the interviews and things, but this is your opportunity to sort of let them know as such, if that.
Okay.
So this is things I've picked up throughout obviously speaking to you, and you can explain them to the fans, if that makes sense. Obviously I think...
Is this the quick fire bit?
No, that's...
This is a bit before.
We'll speed it up.
Alright, that's fine.
But,
just so I'm prepared.
Yes, so I think the first time I ever spoke to you, I think it was a very general sort of get to know you from me.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things you mentioned was EDM music. Obviously, I know I've said to players before about the sort of playlists in the changing rooms. Have you sort of been here 2 years now? Have you wheeled that into the changing rooms yet?
No, well, not in the players' changing room. In the staff changing room, I'd like to think we've had an influence. Over last summer, obviously Oasis toured again. I went when we went to Warwick on pre-season. I unfortunately had tickets, so the Saturday night I drove up to Manchester and met my sister and her husband, and the 3 of us had a right good evening watching Oasis again. So this season has been a little bit of Oasis. There's been we found out that Hugh, the goalie coach, we found out he doesn't like the Beatles, which I find fascinating, that anyone in the world doesn't like them, but he doesn't like them. So to wind him up, we now play the Beatles all the time. So when we were getting changed after Dulwich, we had I think it was Strawberry Fields we put on, and Hugh just shakes his head now and just kind of gets on with it. But we just can't believe somebody doesn't like the Beatles. So yeah, we'll leave him to deal with that. But yeah, I do enjoy a little bit of dance music, and yeah, I've seen Kai go a few times now, so he's always up there on the playlist. But yeah, to be honest, Ethan's the one that kind of controls that, and then every now and again we'll request something. But yeah, it floats between them. It can be an eclectic mix of what we're playing at times.
Yeah, I suppose obviously, like the music, you've tried to build that in. I've got to ask Lego, obviously spoke to you at Cambridge and you said you're a big fan of Lego and your Star Wars Lego. Have you got the pieces you want yet, or are they still in
No, they still need to come. There's been a few bits. I got my son like a Coast Guard boat at Christmas, so me and him built that, and yeah, when I'm at home and we're in the bath and stuff like that, he gets that out and we start to play. So yeah, sometimes I feel like the Lego's really for me, although I have my boys that they can play with it, but some of the Lego I have, they're not allowed to play with, like the Jaws set, I have the big Batmobile set, and a few of the little things that, yeah, some people will probably go, you're a grown man, why are you building Lego? But no, it's very good. So yeah, there's a few other things that are in the wish list on the Lego account I have, but yeah, I can't afford them yet.
Maybe if we get promoted, a treat from the club?
Yeah, maybe. If you speak to Flo about that, that's fine. The Millennium Falcon, 600 for 700 quid, whatever it is, that sound, I'll take that as a bonus, that'd be fine.
Yeah, so obviously, me and Dad always find it so fascinating that I can bring up pretty much anything and you remember it. I don't know if you have the greatest memory in the world, or are you sort of a watcher of football and you watch back? Obviously, I know you sort of watch the stats back and things, but you just got a good memory, or is it you watch a lot of football and take it all in?
I'd like to think I have a good memory. Sometimes I'm terrible with names though, and like I can place a face, and then sometimes the names aren't great. But then when I was a younger coach, I used to pride myself on learning like the names of the people in front of me as quick as I could when I was working in schools and things like that. So I like to think I've just got a good memory, but I do watch a lot of things, and sometimes it's a little bit of escapism for me. I'll just spend 20 minutes just flicking through my phone, and I don't like the phrase doom scrolling. I feel like it's got such a negative connotation, but I love it. I can sit and flick through like Instagram Reels, or obviously TikTok's taking over the world now, but like some of the stuff just makes me laugh, and then you go down a rabbit hole, and sometimes it'll be football, sometimes it'll be conspiracy theories, whatever it is, but I don't see it as doom scrolling. I see it as like just a little bit of light entertainment, but I'm quite easy to just put it away and then I have to work again. So yeah, it's I like to think it's my memory.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to sort of...
I hope you're not going to test that now, are you?
No, I hope not. Go. Here's 3 things to remember. No. I was going to say maybe you should give some people some tips on how to put the phone down, especially me, because I am stuck on the A-level revision, but it's plenty of doom scrolling still coming into it.
Well, the way that your brain works, sometimes not avoiding a task, but changing your task and doing something random can actually help you think. So like, this might sound a bit random, but the team selection that we ended up landing on at the weekend, I was just at like a driving range. I was just hitting a few balls and stuff like that, and kind of not really thinking about football. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, hang on a minute. If we did this and we did this, and then this player did this, and sometimes it just comes around. So yeah, it's often in the moment you don't expect. So you don't want education advice from me. If you put my GCSEs and my university levels and all those together, they're not the greatest. However, I will graft and I will work and I'll do as much as I can to make sure I get what I need to get. So yeah, keep going with that. I've no doubt you're a lot cleverer than I am. So you do whatever you need to do, and I'm sure that A's and B's will come your way. Well, no, it's not A's and B's anymore, is it?
Yeah, for A-levels it is.
Is it? Oh, good.
GCSEs.
I was about to say I'm showing my age there, so...
No, so obviously you sort of said that your education might not be the best, but it's clearly led you to be a good manager. See, we got a little bit of an insight into it earlier where you sort of started. How did you sort of get into managing and obviously end up coming through the women's game, because obviously it's not been the typical route?
To be honest, so yeah, I was 16. My mum, that's very northern, my mum. My mum worked for a plumbing and electrical company, so she naturally wanted me to become a plumber or a lecky. Or a sparky, and yeah, I just was a stubborn teenage boy and was just like, no, I want to go into football. So started coaching at 16. By 18 I'd had my level 2. By 21 I'd managed to pass my my B license, and then when I was at uni I'd started my A license, and then I was 26 I passed my A license. So from like a 10-year period it was just a case of I want to do this, and it took me 10 years to go through the whole coaching set of badges that you could get, and lots of other things in between. And then, yeah, I managed to find my way to Norwich through lots of different routes. I've been in the men's game back home in the northeast with a few non-league clubs. I've been in boys' academies at Sunderland Academy in Darlington back home in the northeast, and then the women's game is really the one that's given me the most success and the most joy. You know, I started at Middlesbrough working with Beth Mead, and very fortunate that she was there when I sort of turned up, and she was under 14. Worked with her for 3 years, and again, absolutely honoured that she wrote about me in an autobiography as well. And actually, one of the players here read her autobiography and said, "Are you the Andy Cook that Beth Mead wrote about?" And I still don't think they believe that it's me. So, yeah, we'll brush over that, but definitely is. And then, yeah, that took me around the country. I've been to Arsenal, Durham, Nottingham Forest, obviously, Newcastle, Oxford United, a spell in the WSL2 before they got demoted. And now here at Norwich City. So I've been around the country, seen lots of different bits, and that's where I've had the most joy and the most success in the women's game. So it's just something that I've always wanted to pursue, and really you've probably got the likes of, you know, Mourinho at the time when I was 14 and 15. He'd just come out of the Porto team that he had. He went to Chelsea, and as a young lad it was kind of like, whoa, this guy's never played football. He's, you know, head coach of this, and probably the inspiration of when I was like 14, 15, 16, like I say, my mum wanted me to be, you know, a cook, plumbing and electrical. You know, I was like, no, I'm going to be a football coach, and I've done all right for myself, and you know, I've tried to enjoy it. I've tried to make people smile, and hopefully we've had a good time throughout, and hopefully we'll have more at the end of the season.
Yeah, obviously I would sort of like to stay forever and obviously keep getting the wins and the promotions, but there's got to be a target for you, I assume. Sort of, is there one club you'd love to coach at the end of it all?
Not really. The ultimate one would be to, I suppose, manage the national team, to coach for the national team, whatever level that might be. Yeah, head coach of a national team as a proud Englishman, I'd love to be able to stand there and sing, you know, God Save the Queen, God Save the King, sorry, and make sure that you're working with the best footballers in the country. But yeah, I don't see it like that. I just think for me, whoever I'm working for and I'm working with, I'll do as best as I can, and you know, as long as it may continue, I love working here, so I want to stay here and work for Norwich City.
So for anyone who doesn't follow you on Instagram though, there was a nice video going around of you on your bike ride over Easter, and obviously tell us about sort of how that came about, and obviously for anyone who didn't get to watch that.
Yeah, so my oldest son, Zach, has just really got into like basically just biking and a scooter as well, and there's a YouTuber, he's going to hear this but I can't remember his name now, but there's a YouTube that goes around like scooting around the gaff. It's quite interesting actually. Like, some of the YouTube stuff is obviously terrible for children, but this one's quite interesting. So this guy like scoots around, he does whatever. So over Easter, me and the two lads, we've been at a few skate parks, and anyway, this morning he was like, I want to go on the bikes where I live, or where they live in the northeast. There's a little bike track, a little dirt track across the coast there. And basically I was trying to film him and be that nice dad that you are, and I just basically went bum overhead and fell off the bike. So yeah, and because I was recording it and I like to laugh at myself as much as anyone else, I just put that quick little bit on Instagram. But yeah, there was a longer version with a few words in there, and then yeah, Zach turns around and goes, "You all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sound." But yeah, it was funny.
Yeah, obviously that is a great promo on why everyone should follow you on Instagram, because that is the sort of stuff you get up to.
Well, now and again,
Yeah. Well, we'll move into the part that you have been looking forward to, is your 10 quick questions. So obviously try and make them relatively quick if that's possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Northeast or Norfolk?
Norfolk.
Sports gear or designer gear?
Oh, designer.
The Nest or Carrow Road?
Carrow Road.
Celebrate wildly, like running down touchline, or stay calm?
If it's a 1-0 win in the last minute, down the touchline.
Oh, good choice. An early bird or a night owl?
I can do both.
There you are. Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings?
Oh, this is going to surprise a lot of people. I've seen a few Harry Potter films, not all of them, so I apologise for big Harry Potter fans, but also I've never seen all the Lord of the Rings. So I'll have to sit on the fence and say, once I've seen all of them, I'll make a decision.
Yeah, sounds alright. Text or call?
Text.
beach holiday or city break?
Depends where, but yeah, both. I love both.
Spotify or vinyl record?
Well, I don't have any vinyl, so I'll have to say Spotify. But if I did have a vinyl record, I'd love to get the Beatles on, invite Hugh over, and then just play the Beatles, first album, just to go, look, Hugh, the Beatles are decent on their original vinyl.
And then last one, VAR or no VAR?
VAR if it's implemented like rugby do it.
I like it.
Thank you.
Thank you ever so much. And this has been Beyond the Barclay. I've been Izzi Basey-Fisher, and I've been joined by the amazing Andy Kirk.
Thank you, Izzy.